Welcome back, everyone. New School Sensei in the house. I'm the host, Lance Douglas. We got Ken also here, and we have one of our most popular guests, Jerome Maitland. So, welcome back, buddy. Good to have you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me again. And congratulations on 50 episodes.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, this is the big 50, so we better make it a good one, yeah, Ken?
Well, like our most popular guest has been Big Jess, so we had to get him for number 50.
Had
Oh,
to,
what an
man.
honor. And also,
Yep.
since last time, guys, congratulations on both getting your black belts. You guys went black belts last time we spoke. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Mate, that was a tough grading. That was a lot harder than what I expected. It almost feels like you're in a washing machine. So for all the listeners, like the way they do it at AET, you come in and you essentially you roll for, how long do we do it for, Ken? 45 minutes, an hour?
Something like that, yeah.
And a lot of the times it's not one-on-one, it's two-on-one, or guys are just jumping on your back, jumping a knee ride. So it's almost like a washing machine. You get a good position on someone, you might sweep them, and then old mate jumps on your back. So it's very weird.
Yeah, we were in the early days of it. I think I did an hour and a half, and at some points it was 5-on-1. It was pretty nasty. So, yeah, no, I'm glad you guys had a hard time.
Almost feels like a gang initiation.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a little bit.
No, it was good. It was good. So I'm very pumped to get you in, Jez. I've had my triple shot of creatine, so I made sure I got that good. I actually found half a cup of old coffee from my wife. So I'm going to just get that in as well. Because we
Yeah, I
got
don't
a
know how
big,
healthy
we have
that
a big
is, but
podcast.
yeah. Yeah, we do have a big podcast.
So if you don't know, Jez just come off big win at Fusion. The topic today is how to be a coach, how to be a competitor, and I also added in how to be a champion. Triple C. Is at the moment,
I'll
Jez, the
cover two
triple
of the
C.
things. Yeah,
So no one
triple
better
C.
to run us through because it is tough being a coach and a competitor. Ken knows. Ken used to compete. Now he doesn't really compete because the coaching responsibilities.
Yeah,
I've done it for a couple of years, and not gonna lie, it's you're running a class, but you also got in the back of your mind you got to get some rounds in too yourself.
100%. No, I couldn't agree more. It's very difficult. And there's diminishing returns on both when you run coaching and fighting simultaneously. I think last time we spoke, I hadn't competed for a very long time. So actually jumping into Fusion, the opportunity was there. I was on a little bit of a health kick, and I just thought it was a nice little, like a nice little goal to help motivate getting back into shape, which was, I mean, effective and it worked. Yeah, it was. It's very difficult. But I was number one. You have to make a little bit of a sacrifice, but you still have to maintain the things. I think walking into that competition, I had a couple of goals. Number one was to get fitter, lose a little bit of weight, which I did, which was great. So work on my health, uh, and also motivate my students. I mean, it's asking a lot of people to jump in and compete, all the fear, all the anxiety, all the risk, and to be on their cases. And a lot of my students haven't seen me compete because, I mean, a lot of jiu-jitsu journeys have been, 18 months, a year, so I haven't competed. I think the last time I fought prior to the most recent fight was Dan Stewart in a super fight at 10th Planet. And he's very good. He's a very good fight. And, but it was a lot of fun, but I took this one very seriously. So, um, as far as competing, yeah, exactly what you talked about before. You definitely have to get rounds in. I did a 6-week fight camp for it, and I was very lucky to have. I'm very reliant on some of my, again, coaching. Have your students that can teach as well. So I have Jason and Reese, my brown belts, who I've mentioned before in the past. They're fantastic. They did a great job of like allowing me to do my training camp and sessions. So I broke off my training camp over I think I did 4 hard days, and then I had rest days in between. So basically every second day. And if I needed the extra day off, just because I was the oldest guy on the card, so the body's a bit weathered and tethered, but you know, it's I just took the extra day. But no, it was really good to get those rounds in. And one thing that was very, very important is I didn't control my camp. I reached out to Tien Ho, who's um, doesn't like the spotlight at all. But at all, he hates being in cameras, hates being mentioned, hates it. And too bad, Tien, I'm mentioning you now. He's a secret weapon, and I kind of trusted him, and I needed someone to trust in and follow the camp. So built around what he suggested, obviously working with Ninos as well, and just taking this pretty seriously. So yeah, I think that's an important thing we've been talking about. Like, as far as like teaching, I can run a structured class, but I think it's very important that when you're in a camp, that you are not the one running it, because you can just say, hey, nah, this is enough, this is enough, this is enough. I think that third person perspective, which I love, you know, I'm a teacher. I believe the third person is very essential in that. So, and relying on that. Yeah, do you have any?
Was Tien your John Danaher, essentially? Or your
Essentially, yes,
Dima?
my yes. I mean, yeah, they're on the same wavelength, you know, very, very unique, but very, very focused. I think, yeah, I think one thing about Tien that I do love, I mean, exactly like kind of Danaher, he obsesses about jiu-jitsu um, and it's very helpful. He sees things like I always describe myself as a finger painter, and he's like a Picasso kind of guy. I think he's just very, very good at breaking things down and also at a black belt level, because there was a lot of factors going into this fight. So Fernando, my opponent, I got a lot of love for him. You know, he's a very big, strong guy. He actually fought one of our guys, Lux, who's a big guy, and Lux did get the win, but I mean, he was only got the win in the last minute of the fight. Fernando managed to land a pretty big takedown right away, typical big boy style, like floated on top and did really, really well. And I think he kind of fatigued in the end of the fight and ended up on the bottom. And if you know Lux is a very big human. So when you have someone that's on top of you that's got a lot of leverage, it was just a matter of time. So, um, I think there was clearly some factors. He was a very strong person by the look of him. I mean, you guys watched the fight. He was a big guy. So we had to deal with, our training camp was basically based around an explosive start. And obviously having big muscles takes a lot of oxygen, and believing that over time he would fade a little bit in the explosiveness. So, the game plan was very simple. Don't just drop down to my back. Don't do my usual habits of like just scrambling and going in bad spots and fighting out. It was I took this camp very, very seriously. I'm like, I was in shape. I was dieting. I was like, cool. I don't need to kill myself. I'm not young anymore. I'm not a 24-year-old, you know, I can get thrown on my head. You know, I've got to look after my health. I've got injuries and stuff like that. And I hadn't competed for a long time, and I wasn't quite happy with how I finished my last competition with even fighting Manchild. Like, he's phenomenal. He's done really well. Obviously, trials winner, goes compete at ADCC. He's a phenomenal fighter. And like, I thought my journey had ended a little bit with comp, but I don't know, there was something in me. It's like, nah, cool. Let's do this. Finish on a high note if this is the last roll, and like train hard, no excuses. Put yourself on the line. Be very vulnerable. Like, you know, just like accept, like, put myself out there. Follow the game plan, which is something I've always really struggled with. As much as I love teaching, I'm a horrible person to coach, because I just scramble and play a lot of games. So we had the game plan. It was really simple. Deal with the explosive power of Fernando, and he's a young black belt. I mean, I think he's a 30-year-old. And like I said, I'm 7 years his senior. I think the explosiveness and the strength was definitely in his favor, and definitely didn't want to be on the bottom. And I think my weapons were, I was more versatile. I had more tools, and I can also fight dangerous when I'm tired. I was a lot more. I can fight in when I'm fatigued. And I think one thing we kind of took advantage of was that with him fading in the later rounds. Again, not taking anything away from him. You've got a 124 kilo guy on top of you. Like it's not a crack at all. But I think he wasn't as dangerous in the later part of the fight. So in watching the fight, it was a very drawn out match. Like we both got a penalty right off the bat, and again that was part of the strategy, because every part of me wanted me to say, hey, just drop down into like a half guard and try and do something cool. But it's like no, we're going to stick to the game. So the game plan was definitely head position, and I've got to shout out Ricky Beecham, the new interim heavyweight champ of Hex, who spent some a massive amount of time in a session together on head position, which was actually 2 weeks, 1 week out from the fight, and it changed to the dynamics of that fight. And I just said, like, when I went to the weigh-ins on the day, so we talk about, sorry, I know I'm jumping around, but like we talk about mindset. I went into this like usually I want to be everyone's friend and be friendly, be thing, and I wasn't rude or anything, but when we were at the weigh-ins and I saw him and I shook his hand and everything, but everything was, I'm not your friend until this fight's over. And at the weigh-in, I stared right through him. I'm like, no, in my mind, like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, this is all, I'm all in, and like, this is how, I'm not gonna have a built-in excuse for why this didn't go well. If I lose, I'll lose because I wasn't meant to win. So, I stared right through him, and again, I feel bad because we chatted afterwards, and he's the biggest sweetheart I've ever met. But like, even in the cage, I'm staring right through him, and I'm like, no, this is all business. Like, of course, shake his hand, no disrespect. He was a lovely guy, even like when we first met. But I was actually surprised I was actually taller than him. I forget how big I am. I know I'm a heavyweight, and I've got no delusions that I'm a big guy, but I don't realize how large I am until, and like looking at the the photos of the weigh-in and stuff like that, I go, actually, gee, you're not that little. You don't look like you look like old school Godzilla. Really heavy at the waist. Yeah, not a modern one, old school in the suits. But and I just, like I said, I went in, and of course there's always nerves, but this time I felt like I took this really seriously, and I also wanted to show my students that it's so important to follow a game plan, do a training camp, like a proper training camp, and believe in your corner. I truly believe it's a team sport. Even though I got the win in there, and look, I did manage to get the takedown. The whole thing was to bait him to shoot, because in those exchanges, he was getting very fatigued. I was putting a lot of weight on the back of his neck, a lot of head position, a lot of driving into him and leverage. And I mean, I've got tons of experience working with MMA and judokas and guys that are very good at leaning and leverage. And it just makes a huge difference to have those training. Like, my training partners in this whole thing were my students. I just got the biggest, heaviest, baddest guys. Got Nick Mann, who's obviously a phenomenal wrestler. He's been around for a super long time. Got
I remember when I started, I was a white belt and he was a blue belt 4-stripe.
Yeah, he
And
finally
that was
got the purple belt.
that was like 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
Sorry, guys, just a sec. Daphne, go to bed, baby. No, I just got my dog here needing attention right now. Of course, right now.
That's all good, bro.
Yeah, cool. But no, it was I put myself through some. Honestly, the fight camp was hell. Like, it was a hellish sort of training, because we were trying to push my cardio and still be explosive to the later parts of the rounds and push through. And I was like, I was doing 60-minute, so 30-second rounds with each person, of them pinning me in bad spots and then me fighting my way out for only 30 seconds, and then a fresh guy would jump on and do 5-minute rounds of that. And then I think by the time of my last session, I think I got through to 11 rounds. So I don't know the math on that. So 11 rounds of 30 seconds each with three, so was that 20? So I think it was like 120 rounds, like 30-second rounds of hard rolling. And basically when I got in there, we were, I said the big thing was we're expecting them to be really explosive, but I think I kind of broke his will a little bit with the head positioning, and it just never came. And then we got the first penalty, which I was totally cool with. Like I thought that was a good penalty. And then it basically, my experience in not panicking with that penalty was he got desperate and went in and shot. I got the headlock position, drove him into the cage, pinned him up against the cage, and I was in no rush to finish that takedown because it was actually, I was driving my shoulder into his sternum to make him breathe heavy. So if you watch the fight, you see that I'm actually holding him there for a little bit. But that was strategic because I was trying to fatigue him a little bit. And then when he got, and then I ended up landing the single leg off the double. So double single, had me in a headlock, but when you're big and you got no neck, like, just sitting there, and then we floated on top. And basically, look, I couldn't grab him because he was so sweaty at that point. Like, he was gassed. And man, it was a hard fight. It was a very grueling match. And like, he did great. Like, he was throwing me around with the collar tie, but, yeah. And then basically when I got on top, I could see him starting to wilt a little bit. And I'd be in the same boat if I was on the bottom, like I said, like, obviously to get an ultra heavyweight on top of you, it's a long day, even if you are an ultra heavyweight. And then just played a really strong positional battle. And then obviously got the win, and it was a big win for me. I'm very happy with that win. And obviously I told myself before the fight, like, telling myself, you celebrate, you go hard after you win, and like visualize winning. And then I got there and I saw him on the ground and I'm like, no, man, this isn't me. So I pick him up, give him a big hug, and like the fight's over now. He fought hard. He fought his ass off, and it was a privilege to be in there with him. And, like I said, all love. And then we chatted afterwards, and, down the line might do some cross training together, which is exactly what I want jiu-jitsu to be about. Even when my guys compete, make friends. It's an awesome community. And then, yeah, big win. My family came down to watch, my cousins, and they were so loud. You can hear them in the video. They're insanely loud. They had no idea what was going on, but they were just screaming. But, it was a big win, for myself, my family, my team. It was a great day, and of course Ninos was super happy that I could run that back as well. So yeah, man, it was a great time. Yeah.
I like it, Jez. Yeah, so this is probably the first time I've actually done some sort of preparation.
Getting serious, guys. Ken normally watches no video. He knows nothing about the guests. But like yesterday, he was studying your match, Jez, almost like I thought Kenny might be BJJ scout. Like he's breaking things down. When you got on top, Ken's like, how come he's not going the Kimura or stepping over going an armbar? And I tell Kenny, mate, he's winning.
But yeah, so if I was to put my scouting hat on, which I've got, the BJJ scout hat.
I tried to get him to take off that hat too, Jez, but he wouldn't do it.
Haven't put any product in the hair, so I didn't want to sort of show that to the viewers,
I got a fresh haircut for this. I couldn't look. Yeah, I got to be careful with that.
Yeah, like essentially, I'll just explain the fight, and if you tell me if I'm saying things wrong, Jez, this is a cool little exercise for me. So essentially, you guys started the match a lot of hand fighting. You were looking for that left collar tie and that right wrist grip, which was really cool. You guys were playing around that for 1-2 minutes, something like that. And then he got a bit desperate. He was getting a bit tired. He shot, and you had an inside tie on him, and you converted that straight to an underhook.
Yeah.
And you were able to snap him down. So that was probably his first mistake. He only made like 2 mistakes, I thought, in the fight. That was the first mistake. He took a lazy shot. And then you put him up against the fence. He didn't really spread his legs out or anything. He sort of did like a big man move. Like he just went for like an arm in on you. He tried to choke you. That would have worked versus me, but not a fellow 120 kilo guy. I feel like he was sort of playing more of like a tricky big man game that works versus guys that are 85, 90 kilos. So then the thing is, you put him down and he still hanged on to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but maybe a strategy error because it wasn't on. And then after that, you were able to pop your head out. You stayed inside control. He did manage to get a half guard. He actually did really one good move. And I actually had to slow it down. And I'm like, how didn't he sweep you? Because this is a move that sometimes I do versus little guys. Again, he did another big man move. You were in top. half guard position. He did like a windmill sort of sweep, you know? So he's like right hand hit you in the head, left hand went to your knee, and he actually off balanced you, but you're quite agile. Believe it or not, the panda is quite hard to sweep. I actually slowed this down. I'm like, how didn't Jez fall over? But you literally, like, you were off balance and you just kept your balance and you're
Yeah.
right back to work. So that was pretty much the match. Like, he made 2 mistakes, I think. His first mistake was shooting, and then his defense on the cage. And then he did one good move. So essentially, I would say, looking at it, you didn't really have to do any good moves. You just stuck to the game plan. You just didn't make any mistakes.
Yeah. I just write it out. Okay, so
How does
we'll
that
break
sound?
down
As someone just like watching the fight.
No, it's not a bad point out. So, okay, so first thing we talked about was the head position and the hand control. So in the previous match that we got to watch, he was very good at picking up the single leg. And of course he's got that deadlifting power in his arms and his hips. So he's really good at getting, which I use as well, it's like not a high crutch, but a high knee single leg. So essentially what you're not doing is you're not dropping down to your knees, you're just maintaining your posture. So kind of like a deadlift, you know what I mean? So it's like butt back, knees kind of squat, straight up spine. So he's really good at that. And when you fight ultra heavyweights, the higher you keep the knee, it's harder for them to balance because there's a lot of top weight. And when you lift that knee, it's like tipping a bucket. So inside head position and the wrist control was super important to block those shots. Now, that wrist position was, and that collar tie, I love that collar tie. That collar tie is a big part of my game. So on the neck and it's just constantly tipping him over. So like push the head, snap the head. I'm not trying to snap into the ground. What I'm just doing is off balancing. And what happens is when you off balance, it forces them to reset their attack. So every time I felt like he was going to explode or do something, what I would do is I would move the wrist control and the head position and I would push, push, push. So it's kind of like if he was trying to dart in, I was just redirecting his energy to the right. And what happens with that is like at a point where I've got a collar tie, you can't actually drop down and shoot because again, I'm taking advantage of the fact that we're both heavyweights. We weren't going to be dropping down to our knees for like a double leg or a single leg. He would do, the kind of takedown that he would do is like an old school kind of double leg, but it was kind of telegraphing because he was opening his arms wide. Because the reason he was like trying to open his arms wide was he was trying to get around my inside position. And with that, when he shot up my legs, my timing was really, really solid because I've been rolling guys they're quite fast at that shot. So my timing on taking that shot, and I was just shooting my hips back without actually sprawling. And then it became in, and every time you shoot as well, you got to understand you're going to be fatiguing every time you go for a takedown. It's exhausting. So he shot, I think, 2, maybe 3 times before that final exchange after the penalty. And I just was like, okay, cool. So now he can't shoot and he can't clench up on my single leg. So now he's trying to snap me down. As I said before, I didn't realize I was actually taller than him. So me being a little bit taller gave me the advantage in the snap down, and I never let him control the top of my head. So for those that are listening, when you collar tie, normally it's on the back of the neck or on the top of the back of the head. Now, no matter how strong your neck is, as soon as you get the top head pressure and you tuck someone's chin into their chest, immediately it compromises the spine and then you can kind of drive their weight down. I definitely did not want those big arms wrapped around my head at any point as far as like under his bicep or in his armpit. I did not want to get headlocked because if it did, he would snap me down and then it'd be a different fight. I think what was that? That was your first point. So that was explaining that. Now I think what was it? The takedown was the second thing that you brought up.
Yeah, it was a sloppy takedown when you're already at inside position.
Can I say, like, as much as it's easy to say it was a sloppy takedown, at this point, we're both down penalties and the momentum was swinging my way in the stand-up. I was the one pushing the pace and moving forward, even though, look, I felt the first penalty was fair for both of us. We were on the feet for a long time. Even though, look, visually it wasn't dynamic, it wasn't explosive, but there was a lot going on in that fight. The hand fighting, and look, I was winning the hand fight battle. The head position and hand fight, So he's at a point now where, look, he starts backing up. So he has to make a choice. And to be fair, he'd made the right choice. I just knew that the choice he had to make was a desperate shot. I was playing my height. Even though I was only slightly taller than him, I was playing my height. There was no way he was going to get on top of me. Again, I was winning the hand fight battle. Every time he tried to break my posture, I was inside position, pushing his arms apart, and I was driving into him. And of course, driving, if those that don't know grappling, the person pushing through is using less energy than the person that's forced to back up. So when you're trying to hit the brakes, you actually burn more energy. So if you're being forced to back up, um, you actually lose energy. I think that goes for like sparring as well. Like I think when I was doing boxing, never good at it, if you're running away, it actually takes more energy than actually moving forward. Okay. So, and then when he went for that shot, it was a last ditch effort. And I actually, if you watch the footage and you slow it down, I almost let him get in on my legs a little bit more than the previous attempts because again, I'm trying to convince him that he's got this takedown so he overcommits. Because for him, he actually was like, I don't get this. He was good at backing out of it. So a little bit of a bait and a little bit of a risk was I actually let him go a little bit deeper on my legs, get his head down that little bit more. And then in that split second where he overcommitted, that's how I got that top pressure on his head. And I was not going to let go of his chin. Like, I had the front headlock. I wasn't looking for the guillotine. He had no neck, but I was just putting pressure there. So, I say that I've got no neck, but I was just maintaining that pressure. And then I wanted to drive him into the cage. Now in the video, I was not in a rush for that double leg until I cleared his right arm, so on my left side. So if you watch, I actually stepped back on my left leg to clear the arm and I circle around to the left, and then that's how I was able to shoot in on him. And then when I drove him into the cage, like I said before, leaning very, very hard through his sternum and his stomach and look, he was wheezing uh, like a knee ride. The amount of pressure I was putting through his sternum was like thing. And basically I was on the doubles. I was thinking of picking him up, but I'm like, don't be a dickhead. Oh, sorry, excuse my language. But don't be a fool. Like, don't pick him up. Like, be smart about this and then switch to the single. I have a very high percentage single leg, takedown, especially off the double. And then when we turned, I felt him grab my chin, like to go for that headlock. But like in the same scenario as him, there's no way that guillotine was coming on. He was holding it, and to his credit, I didn't get the points till I cleared the head. So if we were later in the fight, and even though I landed that takedown, and probably the fight would have gone my way because I was on the top position if it was a ref's decision. But until my head pops out, I don't get the points, which is something I've been working very hard with my students at the moment, understanding that you don't get points until you've cleared the danger. So it's very important to get that. So we had that moment and then we were floating on top. Now, at this point, as I said before, he was sweating quite a lot because, it was a grueling match and very slippery. I couldn't get any control of his wrist. Every time I tried to grab him, I was slipping off. And also he was super dynamic. Like I thought about moving to a mount for a second, but the reality is because we're so barreled, it's never a good idea, especially in a fight where we're both quite, quite fatigued at this point, not to go to mount. Because if you turn me over, well, then it was all for nothing. So we were there and I'm like, God, I can't get his arm. I tried looking for like a forearm choke. I tried looking for his arm. I couldn't grip anything. And then, he shifted back. I let him shift me back in a half guard. And that was a strategy on my part because I thought at least in half guard, I wasn't going to get turned over, but also it's not showing inactivity for me. Now, then I received a penalty, which, look, I don't agree with. I didn't think it was a fair penalty for the second one, but at the end of the day, the result's the result. I won the fight. Adolfo did a good job as a ref, but I didn't think the penalty was fair because we were moving. So they were saying, action, I got a penalty for stalling. And I definitely wasn't stalling. It wasn't like crazy erratic, but anyway, in the moment, again, coaching my students, ignore the penalty, understand what your goal is. Don't be hesitant. Don't look away. Don't argue. Because then I could cap another penalty and then now we're 2 points even and I'm actually down at advantage because of the penalty system. So it's like focus on the fight and I was trying to pass. Now we're going back to the last thing that you mentioned about the fight where he tried doing that like clotheslined, kind of turnover. I use that one a lot too. So if you actually watch the roll, you never actually see me put my weight across his body. So so if I'm on his right side, or sorry, my right side, I never ever put my weight across to the left. So when he goes to that clothesline to turn me over, he doesn't have my weight on me to do, and I do quickly switch. And again, he was really good to recover his half guard, but at that point, that was his last little bit of effort, and I could feel it in the energy of the roll because it's like we're down to like 20, 30 seconds. He started to fade, and I'm like, cool. I just need to stay on point, no risk, just ride this out, and you know, and get the win. And like I said, pick him up. It was great. And like you see me celebrating, and I'm like, when my hand gets raised, and I'm beating my chest. And honestly, the beating of my chest was like, I really put myself on the line there. So it wasn't a celebration. It was like a reaffirmation that, everyone that helped me, this worked. My coach is in my corner. Everything worked. I actually got injured during the camp. My shoulder was really, really bad. Like very, very bad during the camp. So I was able to power through that. And there was a lot of adversity, and my family would come there to see me get that win. And of course, the crowd was awesome. Walking out, the music, like it got me pumped up. And seeing my students there supporting me, it was a great night. And also I got to share the fight card with my students. So you know Courtney was my first gold medalist. And when he was a little kid, he was never little, but now he's this giant human. And I got to share it with him. Thomas David was one of my students. He used to train with me on Friday nights. In no way, David, these guys have gone far past me. Like, you got Thomas Messo, that was on the card. It was on it. I gave Duke his black belt. We're good friends. You know what I mean? Like, and I was able to share the card with these guys that I've, helped along the way. And like, it's just awesome to, still be in it. I was the oldest guy on the card. It was kind of crazy because yeah, I don't think I look as old as what I am, but I feel it on
You
the
don't look
inside.
old, Jez. Must be because we got that Asian blood, yeah?
You're looking
Like,
sharp, bro.
you
You
look
had the
good,
best
man. You look
haircut.
younger, to be
I
honest,
got the
than
best
last
haircut.
podcast.
Yeah, I get real insecure about my hair. I was on a podcast before. It was like really bad. I'm like, I look really rough. I'm like, I never ever want to look like that again. But it was a great night, and a great night to be, share the locker room with AET again. And like, it was, yeah, like I said, it was a really, really great experience. I'm still over the moon. And again, even if I hadn't won, I knew that I'd put everything on the line. I did what I was told. I trusted my corner. And this is what I was trying to show my students. Like, guys, you have to trust your corner. Yeah, I'm such a big believer in like, and if you're saying the wrong thing, it's very important for the corner to own that they've taught the wrong thing. And I've definitely taught some guys some fights, and we prepared in a certain way, and they're like, you know, and I made a mistake. Like, and I said, and I don't blame them. I go, it was my fault. We went about it the wrong way. We'll work it next time. And that kind of ownership is very important. But it's also important for the guy that's in the fight that you need to trust your corner. Don't think you know better than your corner. If you don't trust your corner, you shouldn't be with them. That's my advice. I trust Ninos. I had Callan Potter in my corner. We've been friends for a long time. Callan's very experienced in the cage. I could hear his voice. I could hear Tien's voice. These are people I trust. I don't like, sometimes people have corners and they just have like, a best kind of word I could describe is like a celebrity in their corner that offer nothing. They're just there to, like, not that the thing, but they haven't been in your corner. They haven't been part of your journey. And I think, no,
Almost like
I think,
Zuckerberg for
yeah,
Volkanovski.
yeah, I mean, look, 100%. Look, at the end of the day, Volkanovski was pound for pound, like up there. He can do whatever he wants. And like, it's easy for me to say, I fought at Fusion. And, Fusion is fantastic. The whole experience has been amazing. Mateo doesn't get enough credit for what he's done with that program, creating a platform for like, not just black belts, but honestly for whites, blues, purples, and the production value is amazing. Like, it's a real professional show. And I mean, look, it's a showcase, right? Like, I don't think I'm built for regular competition anymore, if I'm being honest. Like the IFBJJ style competitions, and grappling, and I'm not built for that. I'm built for coaching that. But I think those guys are just so sharp in the commitment, and like I like the concept of a fight camp and a one-off match, and like you put it all on the line, and it's entertaining. And like I said, it wasn't a very high scoring fight, but like I said, the drama in the fight and the journey to the fight was huge. And you could see it in my face after I get my hand raised. And it's like, it was hard work and it was earned. You know what I mean? And I think, and like when I see my students compete, and I take so much pride in them, win or lose. Like it's very important. And I've always loved that. As long as you put yourself on the line, you've already won. And I said this last time when I spoke to you guys. It's like a core value of mine. Go in there, give it your all, believe in the program, and like it's also and believe in what your coach, believe in yourself, have fun. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And like if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. It's like, man, there's easier things to do and less taxing on the body. Yeah. It was a
Done well,
fantastic
Jez.
night. Thanks, buddy.
Just before we wrap it up, so what are some bits of wisdom you can give other coaches who are also competing? Because it is tough. Like I know from my experience, you might have pan packs in a couple of weeks, and then you have a new white belt jump into the class.
Yeah.
Like, do you do your rounds, or do you cater to the white belt? And for me personally, I just did my rounds.
Yeah.
White belt comes in, doesn't get any love, they're out the door. So
Of
it is
course.
kind of it's that balance, isn't it?
It's a catch-22, man, because as well as like you have to understand that there has to be a certain level of selfishness when you go into a fight. So as a coach that's training and competing and stuff like that, I'm a big believer in don't do it on your own. I have like I said, I have my brown belts, my black belts, my purple belts, even some of my blue belts they're trained to teach, and you're a team. So my biggest advice is don't take everything on your own shoulders. I'm going to be the coach. Only I can be the coach. Only I can be the one to fight, and things like that. And what starts happening is you're starting to juggle and hold all this stuff and you fall apart. And what happens is like if you get torn two ways, neither your camp or that person that's trying to sign up, you lose both. I think that you need to allocate time in your session to your students. So I was kind of how I ran my session was for the first half hour, it was run as a class. And then when it was time for my comp prep, I was working with my guys that were helping me. So all my heavyweights, all my high belts. So they were benefiting from beating the crap out of me. You know what I mean? Like, and the thing is, because I'm putting parameters where I'm losing, I'm putting heaps of handicaps on myself. I mean, I got tapped out during that camp. Like I said, heaps of times, like, and then I was getting tapped out less and less because if you only have to output for 30 seconds, then you can do whatever you want. You can just, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, what, an hour in and like, I've got one tear coming down my eye, like just, just getting beaten up. But like, um, they also benefit from watching you fight. So there's that. God, it almost sounds egotistical, but it's not. It's inspiring, right? You know what I mean? When I'm inspired by my students when they're getting ready for comp. We're prepping for grappling industries in a couple of weeks, and my guys are I'm so excited. Like, and like I said, we've won the team title there once before, which is a huge achievement for my guys, and of course, you know, all the credit to like Nino and stuff. But like, I said to Nino, there were certain competitions where I just wanted to see how our guys would go on their own. And of course, that's a big achievement. And they're just so sharp at the moment and they're really taking the advice. And I think a lot of it, where they're actually listening is because I've actually jumped in there and they've seen me jump in there. It's like, okay, no, he's not just talking for the sake of talking. We've actually seen him do it now. And like, what he's preaching is something he's practiced. So I think it's very important to, again, practice what you preach. Share the load is very important. And just actually time management is important. Like I said, half an hour dedicated to technique, drilling, and then your sparring rounds can be for the hour. You know what I mean? And and you don't need to work and teach your students to respect the new person coming in. That's a huge one. My whites and blues, every now and then they get a bit rough. And of course it's new, man. Like you got to understand the kids, you know, like as far as maturity in jiu-jitsu doesn't reflect your actual age. You have jiu-jitsu age. You know what I mean? When you're a white blue belt, you're a young teenager. Oh, I can beat this person.
You're
And
hunting
you
the
don't
taps,
know.
new blood coming in.
Yeah,
Let's
man.
see if we can actually get some attacks going off.
Yeah. And I train my guys, listen, remember how you walked in the door and you were treated? And Ninos, that's a Ninos line. That's not my line. And I live by that line. Treat them like that. When they get good, then beat the crap out of them. You know, that's my advice. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jez. So good to hear your story. Hopefully it helps the other coaches, you know, training, competing, just being a champion, inspiring others. We'll see everyone on the next podcast. Us.